Okay, so I'd like to introduce Ray Jones, who is our virtual delegate and presenter. Ray, if you're ready, you can take it away.
All right, yeah, hi. Okay, so thanks very much, and sorry I couldn't be there. This session's about introducing Twitter, basically, as an essential element of the nursing undergraduate curriculum. And so I'm from Plymouth, and the Twitter account, the mothership, if you like, for the Twitter account of the students is at 14. You may wonder why Twitter rather than, I don't know, Facebook or some other form of social media. Simply because there were lots of nurses already on there, on Twitter. Those of you who aren't in nursing might not know this, but there's an account called We Nurses, for example, has got 60,000 followers. There's another one, Nurse Chat, which has sort of weekly tweet chats. So there's quite a lot of nurses already on Twitter. So getting our students to join up with that online community is quite good. As you know, Twitter is very good for open discussions. People can sort of pop into discussions at any time, and it doesn't require any exposure of sort of personal details in sort of Facebook and so on. This was introduced, we had the opportunity in October 2014 with the introduction of a new module, and what we wanted was all students to be using webinars, chat rooms, social media. We use webinars quite a lot, which is like the webinar version of what we're using at the moment. We do quite a lot of webinars of online voting and so on. And we've introduced this, whole thing of digital professionalism as being 10% of this introductory module, and Twitter was part of digital professionalism. How was it introduced? Well, I started off by piloting the idea with second and third year nursing students in September 2014. I have to say, to a fairly hostile response from quite a few students. Down to the extent of students saying, "Oh, you mean you're going to make us use Twitter? That's against my human rights. You can't possibly do that." So we got quite a hostile response from a sort of significant minority of students. But really use that experience of trying to introduce it to the second and third years to then introduce it properly with the first years. And the way it's introduced is really through a face-to-face lecture about e-health, about the problems of sort of misbehaving, if you like, online, and the problems of disclosing confidential information and things like that online, but also the potential of the constructive use of Twitter. We then follow it with 2 webinars, which include some voting about digital professional scenarios, more e-health, more practical work. And basically telling students that in the world they're coming to, they can't stick their head in the sand, but while they're students, they have the opportunity of trying to use social media as part of their learning and possibly part of their contact with patient groups, while they're under sort of the protective background of being a student with their helpmates up. So students are asked to set up a course Twitter account, to follow some accounts, including this mothership, Type 14, others, We Nurses, Nerd Chat, patient groups, patient opinion, and others. And the assessment that we put in this is 10% of the module is based simply on doing things or not doing things. Very sort of simple. Just did you set up a Twitter account? Have you been to webinars? Do you chat rooms? Just enough incentive in a way to get people to participate. So the webinars and the forums represent 3 out of the 10 marks. Creating the Twitter account and lurking 3 out of 10. We don't force students to tweet. All we do is we say that if you want to get your 3 out of 10, you have to create a Twitter account and you have to lurk and read and see what people are doing. And in some of the forums, for example, we do things like getting them to discuss why people might go into tweet chats, what to get out of it. And then the remaining 4 out of 10, students then have this choice of either writing a short essay on the pros and cons of social media or tweeting. And really, all but a handful choose to tweet. But we do have that sort of get out clause for those who really don't want to participate as live tweeters. So does it need to be assessed? It sounds to be sort of a bit heavy-handed, but I think yes. I mean, if you want to get all students to at least to have considered Twitter, when we did the optional introduction of Twitter to second and third years, very few actually took it up as an optional activity. On the other hand, nearly all the first year students have used it. We have quite a large number of students. We have about 490 starting in October, just under 100 starting in February. So we've now had 1,500 students who set up their Twitter accounts and at least had a trial go with using Twitter. Here's some comments from students. Some are quite surprised. I mean, and that this still is the case now this year. Expressions of I was surprised at how informative it was. People saying I didn't really expect to be told to use social media. I thought I'd be told to keep away from social media, and some still saying that they couldn't really see what it was about. They thought Twitter was all about ranting and arguing, and didn't really see the use of it as professional. So many students do need that little push to come and try and do this. It's not natural for many students. But when they get on there, they say, "Oh, it's felt very supportive, being part of this nursing Twitter community," and it's given them food for thought. Not everybody's happy. Here's three students still sort of citing some of the stuff they didn't like. They've got there's time to be spent doing something else. Some students not getting it even after sort of this attempt to try and get them in there. But overall, we're getting, if you're looking at the yellow bit here, we're getting sort of 70, 80, sort of nearly 90% saying that they think it's worthwhile from these students answering my feedback questionnaire. It's interesting that actually the smaller cohorts seem to be higher than the larger cohorts. So there's some element there about how we get the message across when we've got these very large cohorts of nurses. In terms of trying to keep this thing going, it started off with me sort of running the mothership Punk 14 account. We then extended it and got students in to be joint curation between students and staff. So we have a group of about 20 or so students running the mothership, if you like. All the students have accounts. If you're on Twitter, you'll find students with names like Punk Emma, Punk Mary, Punk 14, Julie, and so on. And then they follow Punk 14. The scale of what we're doing is we've got sort of about 76,000 tweets between the start and October this year. That was with 1,000 students. We've had another 500 students on since then. This graph shows you sort of what happens in terms of their tweeting. So here's the four cohorts, and you'll see you start off with 100% of the cohort signing up, and then if we look at the last tweet after the start, you'll see that there's a big drop off after the obligatory compulsory part of having to do this to be assessed. So a large number of students will tweet when they're being assessed, and then they stop. But we do get maybe 15-20% or so carry on and find it useful. So clearly, not everybody finds Twitter useful, but at least they've had a look at it. At least they've thought about whether it might be useful for them. Just to give you an idea of what the objectives that we tell the students are, we say that the whole bit of digital professionalism is aiming to improve their IT literacy and to find new ways of learning for their future learning as a nurse. Alongside that, also doing some discussions through webinars and the chat rooms and so on about the use of e-health, because these nurses need to understand what their patients are going to be doing. We give some examples of the unprofessional behaviour of students, mostly on Facebook as it happens, students sort of arguing amongst each other and using bad language and so on online. And but we're trying to show that how Twitter can be useful for an online personal learning network. So this is how we assess it. It basically is not just turning up, really, and doing stuff. So answering survey, being in an online webinar and voting. So we have webinars where people vote on different scenarios and so on. Being in the discussion forum, regardless of what they say, being in more webinars. So it's very much just a, have you done it? Have you tried it? Yeah. So the conclusions are really that we think that the nursing students do need input on digital professionalism, and this should include encouraging sort of careful use of social media. We're currently using Twitter, but the main point is that I think that some small amount of assessment does seem to be needed to get students to engage, at least for a while, and to have considered the use of social media. We're not quite there yet in making this work for 90% of the students. We're getting, as you saw, we're getting about 75–80% think it's worthwhile. Finding out which students don't think it's worthwhile and why is still quite important. But in what we're doing, we get quite a lot of support from this online nursing community, We Nurses, Nerd Chat, as well as patient groups. And there's a paper there, and that's basically it. So quite short, but very keen to have any questions or discussion.
Great, thank you, Ray. Right, so Ray, there is a sort of boom mic thing, but if you're in the back corner there, you might have to speak up, okay, if, to get your question heard. So, does anyone have any questions? Yeah?
Did you do a kind of survey to find out what students' use of social media was before you started introducing Twitter? Did you establish a baseline?
Yeah, I've generally done some surveys each time. Virtually, you find about 95% of them are on Facebook. Twitter's relatively a smaller number, or it's been growing over the last 2 or 3 years. I think this October it was about sort of 35 to 40% maybe had used Twitter beforehand. 2 years ago it was more like about 15–20%. There's an increasing number, well, a smallish number, but increasing a number of users, people using WhatsApp, and Snapchat's not really used much. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does, yes.
In terms of the demographic of the student, with it being a nursing course, was it more mature students, or are we talking 17, 18-year-olds who've come straight from college?
Yeah, I'm not sure if Plymouth Nursing's cohort is different. The general sort of nursing cohorts, we have a lot of mature students on our course. We get quite a lot of sort of the 25 to 30-year-olds, as well as sort of 40-year-olds coming back after having families and so on. One of the interesting things actually was that the older students were more likely to think that Twitter was worthwhile than the younger students. The younger students, it is actually the 18, 19-year-olds who are more likely to not quite see the point of Twitter as part of their social. The use of social media is really useful for, it's across years, across universities, across campuses, and across the world, of course. And with the professions, I mean, with the students who really appreciate being able to tweet something and then getting a response from the chief executive of the local hospital, which happens, or somebody else in the NHS in Newcastle or Scotland or somewhere else, and that sort of sudden feeling that they can actually discuss stuff with people that they would never dream of being able to discuss stuff normally is really appreciated. And I think that's going back to the question about demographics that somebody asked earlier. I think as a lot of the older students and more mature students get that and really appreciate that more than some of the younger ones. It takes the younger ones a little bit a while getting to that. Sorry, a bit of a long answer to a simple question.
No, thank you very much.
You've actually answered the question I was going to ask.
There was another question, but it's been answered when you explained it.
I mean, I'll make more of an observation. Hi Ray, I'm the next presenter. I'm Andrew.
Hello, yeah.
So you're noticing that there are other people now participating, and you're noticing that they're actually making a valid contribution as well. Are you doing stuff to actually encourage that wider community?
Oh yeah. I mean that's really the whole point. This wasn't Twitter so that the students can talk to each other. They've got the DLE for that. They've got discussion forums for that. And I'm actually encouraging within the groups to set up their self-help groups on WhatsApp and things like that. The whole point for us for Twitter is that they do talk to students from other universities, they talk to people from the NHS, they talk to patients and patient groups, and they do. I mean, I've looked at, I didn't have a slide on that in the presentation, but I think it's, I did some analysis on the first year's worth of tweets, and I think that something like 60% or so of the tweets were with people who are outside of the course. So something like 60% are with people from the NHS, people, patient groups. So getting that wider conversation going is what it's all about. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, maybe one more if anyone's got one. Okay, Ray, I think that's all the questions we had. Can we give him a round of applause again?
Thanks very much. Hope you enjoy the next paper. I'll sign off then.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Let's stay away from
Okay.